Today's date is June 17th, 2014. We're at the Ball State location. We are on the campus of Ball State University in WIPB studios. This is for the Ford Oval of Honor 2014 project, and with me today is Chris Gonzalez, a veteran of the U.S. Army's 1st Armored Division and a veteran of Gulf War I. So, Chris, thank you for joining us, and thank you for being a part of our project.
Thanks for having me. It's a great honor.
When and where were you born, Chris?
I was born in 1969 in Tucson, Arizona.
What motivated you to join the U.S. Army?
I graduated high school. I wanted to go to college, but I wasn't really confident that I was ready for that. And the only thing to do in Albion then was either work in a factory or at a restaurant. And I decided that I would go talk to an Army recruiter. I liked the idea of it. I guess my whole life as a kid, I was always enamored with the military, and even though when I was in high school I didn't think I would want to go to the military, I thought it was just a crazy idea. But as I got to that point in my life, I was like, this is the best opportunity for me to get a little adventure, because my mom wanted me to join the Air Force. She was very adamant about it. And I was like, no, I'm going to join the infantry. I want some adventure. I want to jump out of airplanes, which I didn't get to do, but it was still one of the greatest things I ever did to personally show me that I could do anything if I really wanted to. And that was what the Army taught me.
What year did you join?
I joined I left for basic training at Fort Benning in October 27th of 1988.
And in 1988, the Cold War was winding down somewhat. You could see that.
Correct.
Did you feel that when the Iron Curtain came down in '89 that you'd missed your chance for adventure?
No. You know, there were still things going on in Korea, and there was, even though I was a Bradley driver, they were just starting to get them in Korea. So there was a good chance that I was still going to see something.
Okay. What was your training like, basic and advanced?
It was very intense. The physical training was unbelievable. Yeah, I mean, you know, when I went there, I wasn't very strong upper body, and you know, they do regular PT tests all through basic, and then you do them every 3 to 6 months after that, and they just really whip you into shape in a matter of no time, and taught us camaraderie, which really happened more in the barracks after training. You know, you have a lot of different personalities from all over the country, different upbringings and that, and you get thrown into this great big open barracks with no privacy. You got to learn to live together, and that's part of the training. You know, when they shaved our heads, we all looked the same. There was no individuals, and they taught us everything we needed to do to be the best of what they needed us to be.
You were born in Tucson, and you grew up in a small town in northern Indiana, Albion, Indiana. What was the, I guess, ethnic makeup of Albion? And you're Latino. So how did going into the Army kind of show you a wider world?
Growing up in Albion, I was the only Hispanic guy in my school till my freshman year. Then there was one other that came. So it was interesting, but it was a good farm community of good people that, you know, there was no racial tension or any put down for not being a white farmer. And then going into the Army, it's multicultural, and you learn to adjust coming from a background of a small town to you're there with people from New York City, from California, from all kinds of different lives and different upbringings. And it's very interesting to be a part of that, because somehow something just happens and you learn to accept everything and everybody, because it's a brotherhood. You realize that early on, that this guy next to me may be different than me. He may be a rougher guy than I could ever be, or been through things growing up in New York City that, you know, I wouldn't even believe was true if unless, you know, I was there. And that same guy is going to be the guy that has your back when it really happens, and you learn to overcome any of the obstacles. But there are obstacles. It's not all easy going, and there are personality conflicts, and you learn to that we all have to get along and not be prejudiced because of the color of their skin or because they're different, because in the end we're all just brothers.
You all wore army green.
That's right. We were all in the same colors and same uniform. So
You were stationed, this multi-ethnic army of this brotherhood of soldiers was stationed in a forward deployment in Bamberg, Germany. What was it like to be in an American soldier in a foreign culture?
Bamberg was an incredible city. There was a university there, and the city was very open to all of us. As a matter of fact, I'd never been to a place where we were so accepted and welcomed. And we go back and start over.
Yeah, go right ahead.
I forgot where I was going. What was your question?
I was just talking about being an American soldier in a foreign culture, and you know, American troops had been stationed in Germany since 1945, and here at the end of the Cold War, you may have been that last batch of soldiers. So how did that work out for you?
Bamberg was an incredible city, and actually we were the last soldiers that were in Bamberg. They closed, when we came back, they had closed the base down except for a small scout troop division that was to remain behind. But we grew up together in that city. Not long after I arrived in October of '90, and it was November when we got the word that we were going to be called up to deploy. So we didn't have a lot of time, because a lot of times, because of what was going on, to go out into the city, we were restricted to the base a lot. But what times we did get to go out was incredible, and a lot of fun.
The orders came down. You had just joined the 1st Armored Division in Germany, and you were set to deploy. Can you walk us through getting from Germany to Saudi Arabia?
Germany to Saudi Arabia was an immense task. We had to load up all of our vehicles in a rail yard that was close to the post, and I can't remember how many vehicles that we had, but there were thousands of wheeled vehicles, and the tracks, the Bradleys and the M1 Abrams, where we would go to the rail yard, load them up, and then they would go from the rail yard. They'd take them to a port and load them up on the ships where we would eventually be waiting for them in Saudi.
How did you get to Saudi?
We flew actually on United Airlines, so it wasn't too bad. We thought we were going to have to fly on one of the C-130s. The only downside was that we left Nuremberg, Germany at 10 o'clock Christmas Eve at night, and we arrived at like 10 in the morning at King Fahd Airport in Saudi Arabia.
So you missed
Merry Christmas.
When you got there by December, the mission had changed from Desert Shield. It was looking like it would be Desert Storm. There would be conflict. There would be war. What were your thoughts? What thoughts were going through your head?
Well, once we got to our temporary destination of Tent City in Saudi Arabia after an 11-hour bus ride, we knew that there was a good chance that we would end up in battle, and we were apprehensive. Thank you. We were apprehensive and nervous and scared. You know, everything we had trained for was about to come to life. It was about to be tested to see, you know, we did a lot of training before we left Germany. Once we found out, we would go to Stuttgart on the simulators, and then we do a lot of live fire exercises to prepare. And then you get there, and then you're told, you know, once your vehicles get here, we're going to set you out in a predetermined position, and then we'll let you know. And you wonder if everything's going to click in. You know, am I going to remember how to do everything right? Is, you know, everybody going to be able to pull this off? So it was a scary time. I mean, we continued to do our physical training and adjust to extremely cold showers because none of the heaters worked. So, you know, any given morning you could hear grown men screaming across Tent City from the freezing showers. That's scary enough. And then the sandstorms on a daily basis, it seemed like they were every day, even though they were far apart, they seemed like it because they were just awful.
So you had far away from home and knee-deep in the adventure you sought when you enlisted. Tell me a little bit about your vehicle and your role in that vehicle.
After I got to Bamberg, I was fortunate enough before that to be stationed at Fort Benning with the 1st to the 29th, and our role at that company was to support and train ANOC, BNOC, they're the schools for the non-commissioned officers, as well as the OCS students training to be officers, and then we would put on demonstrations on post whenever important officers and people would come to the post. There I became a Bradley driver on a regular basis, so I pretty much lived in the Bradley. All the preventive maintenance and everything was on my shoulders at the motor pool, and that's what we'd do on our daily task, and then we would put on these demonstrations, and I was constantly driving a Bradley. So once I was stationed at Bamberg, my platoon sergeant approached me, and after we were told we were going to deploy, he's like, "How would you like to be my driver?" And I said, "I would love it," because the guy that I was going to be a part of a squad with was going to get me killed. I thought. I was scared. He was very into it, but he was a good sergeant, and he kept his guys alive, so I was just intimidated by the E6. But becoming a Bradley driver and learning all that at Fort Benning proved to be the best thing that happened to me, because our platoon sergeant was incredibly insightful and well-trained, and he knew his job, and he knew how to do it and direct the others properly. So I became a part of that, and our Bradley before we deployed had a malfunction, and they ended up completely removing the turret and rewiring it. So we didn't know, after we loaded it on the vehicle and sent it off, how it was going to be when we got there. We didn't know if it was going to work 100% or not. Turns out our vehicle was the only one that didn't have any malfunctions mechanically at all during the whole time, so it paid off, and it made me look good too.
So you and your unit got to the desert, they got your vehicles to you, and you waited. What activities and training did you undergo before the air war commenced to get you ready?
After our vehicles arrived at the port, we loaded them onto trucks, and then we continued on another several-hour-long bus ride out into we didn't know where, somewhere sandy. And it was really funny. We'd been, on that bus for several hours, and we had just laid down in our cots, and the vehicles were there, and they came in, and we'd just laid our heads down, and they came in, and they were like, get up and install your guns and get everything ready and load them up. There's a big troop movement of the Republican Guard that they saw on the satellite. So we rush out there and put the barrels in for the 25mm gun, and we realized that our gunners are on another bus with the firing mechanism. So we had no way to fire our 25mm guns at all. And then after that, a couple hours of that, they said that it was okay, that it was nothing, that stand down. So that was our first crisis moment where we thought we were being thrown into action.
Right out of the gates.
Right out of the gates. So after the small scare that we had, we would still continue our physical training on a daily basis. First thing we do, just like when we were on post, get up in the morning, run, do physical training. And then we would go out and we would practice our movements and our formations so that we would know where to go, and they could test the Magellans that we had then. Of course, that thing was huge. It was the size of the old Vietnam walkie-talkies, this long, this big around, and it would only get you within 10 kilometers of your actual destination point. And now, today's phones, you can do that and be right on the money. So that's just funny to think back about. But yeah, and we trained with all the newest equipment that we could, and we learned to move with the Abrams because that's who we supported. They were the big dogs, and we were there to 100% do whatever they needed us to do.
So your Bradley had the 25mm guns. What other weapons and actions and activities were expected from the Bradleys?
The Bradley also has room in the back. It has a ramp. It has a door on the ramp that will open, or the ramp, when I would release the lever, would lower the back ramp and they could dismount. It also carried, besides the 25mm cannon, it had a 7.62 machine gun mounted alongside the 25mm, and we had a 2-missile tow launcher on the side also, which all the ammo was stored inside the vehicle underneath the floorboards. So we had that, and the dismounted infantry of 5 guys with their weapons, ranging from your M16, M203, the Dragon, which is also a wire-guided missile launcher. Just a full infantry squad. Each squad had different gun, weapons, and tasks.
But you carried a lot of firepower even in your one vehicle.
Right.
And you were part of a vast armored fist aimed at the Iraqi army.
Correct.
I'm going to check my notes real quick. Speaking, I guess, of that Iraqi army, it had just come out of the war, long decade war with Iran. So it had battle experience, it had combat experience, and was over 1 million men. Were outside of the army, there were questions being asked about what the combat would be like. What was the mood inside your unit with regards to coming to grips with that experienced enemy?
The Iraqi Army's experience was definitely in the back of our mind. They had battled for 10 years with Iran. They were seasoned. Had everything that they could possibly need as far as they had the T-72s, the T-55s, and armored vehicles and experienced combat troops. Whereas a lot of us were yet to be proven. The overall idea in our head was that we were going to be fine, but the honest side of it is we weren't sure. You know, we haven't had a chance to test our skills that we've trained so hard for. So we were scared, but we were ready.
Yeah. And that takes, I think, an incredible amount of personal courage to overcome those fears and be, you know, kind of subsume yourself to the Army spirit, as it were, and think, I'm part of a big machine, we're going to war, and you had some faith in the organization. What about, you talked about in training, you became a brotherhood. How did that change during the course of your experience in Saudi, in Iraq?
The collective of soldiers that was in my platoon and in my company, the brotherhood only grew stronger. Our faith in each other and the faith in our training was just undeniably strong and incredible. And I think at the moment of getting the order to cross that border into Iraq was we were fueled by the camaraderie that we experienced, and as it got stronger, you know, even if there were people that didn't get along before that, they set their differences aside and knew that we had to rely on each other, and that helped strengthen and calm our nerves to do what we had to do.
Also reassuring had to have been the 38-day air campaign that preceded your ground campaign. Sitting on the sidelines, watching the planes go over and watching the fires across the border, was there any, not concern, but any thought that maybe there would be no ground war?
The air war was so successful, and we knew because we had daily updates, because initially it wasn't supposed to be 30 days. And we saw planes on a daily basis on their refueling above us. We saw A-10s constantly within battle. And there was speculation that maybe we wouldn't go, that they were so successful, there may be no need. That's a little bit of hope, but just very happy that the air war was so successful. Whether we had to go or not, we knew if we did that they were going to be in pretty rough shape. They weren't going to be as strong as they were if we had just plowed in without the air campaign.
Right. So teamwork kind of.
Yes.
Page 1. At 1 a.m., February 24th, the ground campaign kicked off. President Bush gave General Schwarzkopf the go-ahead. And your battle began. The 100 hours of combat began for you. Can you describe that first night and the following morning?
On February 1st,
24th.
Okay, February 24th, the order came that we were going to go. There was already some action. We saw a couple Scuds that were shot down not far from our position in the desert, and it actually ended up setting off our gas alarms, and we ended up having to don our gas mask and gear and chemical stuff. Luckily, it was just from an electrical discharge that caused the alarm to malfunction. So the night prior to that was a scary time, because they're like, we're seeing things getting shot out of the sky and we're still sitting there. Then the order came, and we started to roll out, and the butterflies were kicking in, and we drove on in, and we were, I think, 30 kilometers from the Iraq border when we started. And then once we went over the dirt mound that separates the countries, that was it. We knew we were going to battle.
Did you engage that first night, enemy armor and positions?
We did. Let me think. I'm trying to remember, because, like I said, they all blended together. Mm-hmm. On the first night, our 1st Armored Division did not run into any conflict at all. We actually, things were pressing so well from the 1st Cav and the Big Red 1 1st Infantry Division that we just continued farther to the west of where they were at. So there was nothing dug in where we were first initially came in to country.
You mentioned the other units in your corps. You were part of 7th Corps, which was the heavy armored fist of the coalition forces. It included 1st Armored, 3rd Armored, 1st British Armored, 1st Cav, and the Big Red 1. And you were expected to tangle with and destroy the Republican Guard, which was the elite of the Iraqi forces. On the night of February 26th, 27th, your division encountered the Tawakalna Republican Guard Division and engaged. Do you remember that action?
On the 2nd and 3rd night, the Tawakalna Division was dug in several locations, and they were dug in really deep. They had a lot of armored support, and that was when we encountered, it was at night that we encountered the first battle with, there was T-72s and T-55s dug in. There was our division, and the Apaches came in as support, and it was just incredible fireworks at night. The Apaches were very successful, and the Abrams, in crushing the first line of defense. The fireworks were going off. The green tracer bullets from the burning tanks and the rounds that they stored. Oddly enough, the T-72s and T-55s were not well designed after taking a direct hit, because they would stack their ammo behind the gunner and the commander, and they had the rounds pointing up. So once that got hot in there, everything was going. And the Abrams, they have a blast shield, and their
They're directed away from
directed
the
away
interior.
from, yeah, I was trying, the shells are directed away from them so that they do have an opportunity. And we did see an Abrams that had been hit, and the crew managed, you wouldn't think it to see it when it was all burnt, but they managed to get out because of that, the better design. So that and the infantry, they, when it was all over after the first battle, they were talking to their commander of the Iraqi forces, and they asked him, when did you know we were here? And his response was that we didn't know until the turrets started coming off our tanks. They had no clue. And, you know, we were 3,000 yards or better away from them, and I could see them with my night vision in my driver's hatch. It's just incredible to think about that we could see them, but they couldn't see us until the destruction started. Which, at that point, me personally, at Calm, I knew I was going to be okay. Just from that first battle, all the nervousness, all of the scared, hey, we can't do this. Am I going to make it? You know, do I have all things in order? Did I kiss Mom goodbye? Running through your head. And it just kind of melded away. It was like, we're going to be all right. We're going to make it.
Yeah. The next morning, at night, the fireworks went off. But the next morning, as you drove through the remains of the wreckage of the Iraqi force facing you, what did you see and what were your thoughts?
After the sun came up, the battle was over, and we began to continue forward, but part of the mission was to check for any survivors and make sure that we had everything taken care of. As we came over the sand mound where this T-55 was located, it was still on fire, and there was the gunner's skeleton was still holding on to the 51 caliber machine gun, and it was a realization of the true dark side of war. This guy died with his hand still on the guns, fighting when they were being decimated, and his charcoal skeleton was there. And I remember looking at it and thinking, wow, this is real. This is as real as it gets. Then you start to think about the humanity of what's going on, and how incredibly real it is. And you know, you think to yourself, wow, that guy might have had a family, more than likely had a family, and he's doing the same thing that I'm doing, just on the opposite side. So when you get that vision and you continue on after that in the following battles to come, it gives you, it changes you, not in a bad way. You learn to accept that because you know that you're going to see that, but knowing it isn't really make it okay, and understand what you're seeing. But then all of a sudden you think about the previous wars that were a lot bloodier than ours: World War II, World War I, Vietnam, Korea. They endured far worse than we did, but you understand what they went through, and when some of them came home, how they had a hard time adjusting. I mean, you don't have to see 100 bodies piled up to understand that one body was enough for me. This is the horror of war, the downside to to doing this, but you have to do it because they've taken a country and they've done this to the civilians without thinking, without any heart.
So your sustaining motivation after you saw that was, we're here for a mission. Our mission is to liberate Kuwait. We've been asked by our president, he's the commander-in-chief, and I'm a member of this United States Army. And your training kicks in. Can you describe the fatigue, because you had a lack of sleep, and how that affected you and your thought processes as you move forward?
As we rolled through the continuing days after the first battle and the continuing battle to later with the Republican Guard, I remember being very tired. We ran on pure adrenaline for those 5 days, and I think maybe a couple times while we would refuel on the move, I get like a 15-minute nap, and plus you're driving and you're seeing all this stuff, and it gets even though you're tired, you still keep going, and to this day I can't explain. I mean, I know some of it was adrenaline, but all of us stayed awake and talked and continued to understand that, this isn't over till it's over, till they say stop. Mm-hmm. So partially adrenaline, and then the other part I don't know. It could have been just the training that drove us on and kept us going for that. I mean, because everybody was exhausted. I remember I fell asleep at the end when they called the ceasefire for 2 days. I laid my seat back and I was out.
Yeah. Did you feel, in the midst of that, you talked about adrenaline, but did you and your fellows have any appreciation that you were making history? You were part of history?
When we took on this mission and started out, the idea that we were going to be in the history books never really came up, and we didn't really think about it. We didn't think that we were going to be a part of the most successful ground war in America's history. And when it was all over and we were waiting to go home and stuff, it still didn't sink in. And I guess to this day, I mean, 100% of it hasn't soaked in that, we did something incredible. We were a part of a view of our country and our military that was incredible, and the support of the people and the Americans, and even the Kuwaiti people and the Saudis, that they were proud of us, and they were glad that we were there, and we were glad we were there. But the support from home was incredible. But I guess, I don't know, I guess when you're making history, you don't really think, hey, I'm making history. I'm going to be a part of something that's going to be talked around about for generations after I'm gone.
And you were just doing your job, you felt? Mission, accomplishing your mission?
We were doing what we were trained to do, and it all came together. Yeah, I mean, when you're in basic training and then you go to your unit and you go to the field for 30 days at a time, and you're like, oh man, this is so boring. We do this all the time. It's the same thing. And it was that same thing that we did all the time that made us so successful. We were ready. We were ready to do what we were trained to do. Mm-hmm. And you know, they train you to not think but react. It is all a big part of basic training, and you don't realize that until it comes time to use it. And you don't think. Maybe that's why we didn't think, you know, hey, we're going to be a big part of history. We were just doing our job.
Yeah. And you had talked about the support from home, and I'm kind of breaking the chronology somewhat, but on the flight back to Bamberg, you had a moment with a Vietnam veteran. Can you describe that to us?
When we found out we were going home, we were very excited. We spent 6 months in country total. The last part of it was going back through everything that where we had fought and doing cleanup. And 6 months of 110 to 120 during the day and 50 as soon as the sun goes down. We were ready to go home. And we were on a commercial flight to go home. And, you know, the plane was full of high energy, excitement, we're going home. And it turned out that our pilot for our flight home was a Vietnam veteran. And he came over the intercom system and he told us that he was a Vietnam veteran, and he thanked us for relieving a burden that they had carried ever since the end of the Vietnam War. And the plane went silent. A plane full of infantrymen went silent and teary-eyed, because that would be our moment, probably, for the realization of our part in history to somebody so important to us, the Vietnam veteran, who had suffered so much, not only the battles, but the non-support of their country when they came home. And he was thanking us for relieving that burden. And what an incredible moment in history for us on that plane. Yeah. To be thanked by a Vietnam veteran and doing something that, in the midst of all the things positive that we did while we were there, for not only our military being so successful so quickly, but to know that we were a part of something that great was just an incredible feeling. And not even realizing that we had done that until he spoke to us. It was an honor and, you know, just an incredible moment.
And how many other troops returning from the Gulf War probably never had that moment of clarity, that sense of context that the U.S. Army had reconstituted itself in the wake of Vietnam, and you and your actions in Gulf War and Desert Storm were the fruit of that reconstitution to erase the stain that Vietnam had placed upon our military. You're active as well in the American Legion and in the Veterans of Foreign Wars, and so you interact with veterans of all wars and conflicts. Can you talk to us about your interactions, how you came to join these organizations, and what these organizations do?
Joining the VFW and the American Legion was probably the second greatest thing I ever did related to the military. I got out in February of '92, and I had been home for probably 2 years or so, maybe a little longer. And 2 Vietnam veterans from my hometown pulled me and one of my friends aside. He was a veteran of the Air Force during the Gulf War. and explained to us that it was important for us to become members of the Legion and the VFW, which they were both a part of. And I still remember Jim Erdley, who was a great local businessman and just a great man, looked at me in the eye and he said, you know, it's really your duty to be a part of this, to help continue what we do. The organizations, they do endless support for troops that are in country now. They'll send care packages and letters, but also for the veterans that are here, some of the older ones that are suffering from disabilities or health issues. They'll do a lot of fundraisers and organize things to help in any way they can. And it's great to be a part of that. And to be a part of the memorial services for the funerals and the Memorial Day Parade. All those things bring back, when I'm involved in those, my sense of service and still being a part of the military and still serving America.
Do you feel a sense of duty and honor to those that have both come before you and are serving now?
A sense of duty and honor is the best way to describe of being a part of both organizations. To be able to be that helping hand, or to be next to them and hear their story at the post, and that happens a lot. You know, sometimes it's a form of healing for some, especially, you know, the Vietnam era guys. They're not known to really sit down and talk about what they went through, but when you're out there and they're with fellow veterans, it's easier to talk about things, and that's a big part of the healing process and coping with what they've seen and been a part of. And that's another honor to just be among those people.
Is there something a bond that unites all veterans of any war, and is it something that only one veteran who's seen combat can understand and tell another?
Say that again. Ask it again.
When you're on post and you're talking with, say, a Vietnam veteran, there's maybe 30 years or 25 years that separates you from that individual. Is there a bond that still exists between you and a veteran of any other conflict?
There is a bond and a camaraderie between the different eras. There is no age when you're sitting and talking to each other. It's just like, you know, you're sitting together on a military post or even in country. I mean, you sit there and you talk about those things and you relive them, and there is no age difference between us. And sometimes, you know, you're talking about 30 or 40 years with the Korean vets and the Vietnam vets. Then the younger guys that were part of Iraq are part of Desert Storm like me. It's amazing to sit and talk, because there is no indifference. There is, I was a Marine, you know, we did everything, and you Army guys just supported us, or, you know, there is none of that. There is no sense of more pride over the other one. The pride is in that we're a part of an organization that is an incredible experience. All of us joined, most of us joined at a young age, you know, early 20s, late teens. And the stories are just incredible. Whether they're peacetime stories or wartime stories, there's a lot of laughter. There's a lot of hugs, too.
You've done quite a bit personally to help veterans returning from our current conflicts in Iraq and Afghanistan. Wait and see what this was. Okay. Do you have an instance, or can you tell us about some instance where you've talked to a returning serviceman who just came off active duty and how you've helped that person?
Helping the new guys coming back is a bit of a challenge. A lot of them have been on multiple deployments, far more than any other conflicts or war times prior to us. Reaching out to them and letting them know that we're there for them is an important thing. And whenever I meet someone new that's come back, actually some of them are my brother's age and went to high school with them just recently, Air Force veteran, try to get them to come out and see what we're about and see what we have to offer. Have them be a part of two of the greatest organizations that I've, you know, been a part of, and many before me. And sometimes the downside of reaching out is they don't want to be a part yet. They're not ready yet. And as frustrating as that is, it's understandable. But we will still be here when they're ready. And knowing that we are going to be there for them is the best part.
I'll probably come back to that.
That's fine.
But I broke the chronology. But
That's okay.
I had to.
You got editing.
Yeah, we'll edit.
Make me look a little bigger in the chest.
They'll make me look good, and we'll do some pixels and stuff. The last night, February 27th, 7th Corps ran into the bulk of what was left of the Republican Guard, and they stood and fought. Can you maybe tell us about the last actions that you were in, and did you sense any desperation or last gasp on their part?
The very last conflict before the ceasefire was with the Republican Guard, and they resisted to a point. It wasn't as strong as we had expected, you know, because the Republican Guard was the elite, most experienced of all the Iraqi soldiers. But 38 days of pounding from the air had taken its toll. Communications, supplies, everything had been cut off for a long time. And surprisingly enough, as we came up on a lot of them, there was lines of these Republican Guards coming out of the desert. Some of them, all they had on was a pair of pants, and they were laying AK-47s on the front. I had it stacked as high as you could possibly stack them without them falling off, and they were blowing us kisses. They were happy to see us, which you know, throws you off because we're expecting a bigger fight, but they had no fight left in them. Yeah. And you know, our company took over 250 prisoners that day.
And you could have taken more.
Right.
But you were a combat unit. Can you talk to us about that?
The being in the weaponized super tanks that we have today proved to be intimidating in some of the situations that we had. When we go back to the first day, we did encounter a giant building out in the middle of nowhere, which turned out to be a barracks and a training facility. The Abrams commander didn't want our guys to dismount. He didn't want anybody to get hurt unnecessarily if we didn't have to. So we go through this building, and there's anti-air and all kinds of weapons outside the building, but we didn't see anybody. And after we had passed through, and the combat support, fuel trucks, supply, and everything, the entire building was full of soldiers that were scared to give up to us because they were afraid that we would kill them on the spot. So they gave up to the supply guys and women.
Yeah. And you mentioned that about how Gulf War I, we see the beginning of women in more support roles, combat support roles, and closer to, if not in, the forward area of battle. How has that, I guess, how did that shape your experience, if at all? And then do you see any veterans coming into your organizations who are female?
The role of combat over history has always been portrayed as mainly a man's job. And even today, I guess, in most people's mind, when they think of a combat soldier, they're thinking of a man. It's not so. Even during our conflict, the women played a substantial role in combat support, and they saw combat. They would be attacked mainly because they were the supply trucks. While they had M16s and sidearms, they weren't as heavily fortified as we were, but they still fought, and they still had an integral part of continuing to keep our supplies to us, for us to continue on. Without them being in those roles and taking those risks, we wouldn't have had supplies and been so successful. And even now that Congress has okayed for women to be a part of combat, they've always been a part of combat, all the way back through the Civil War and before, in all our history. And it's incredible that they don't get that recognition, because whatever their role is, MP or combat support or anything, there's pilots, female pilots in our fighter jets, and I think it's incredible and that they don't get the recognition that they deserve, because they're just as hard as the guy next to them. They got the same training, they have the same weapons.
Mm-hmm. And have you had any veterans come into your Legion or VFW, female veterans?
We have one that's still in the National Guard. She's an adopted member of one of our members' family, and she's still serving in the National Guard. She's in Wisconsin, but when she's home, she always comes to our Legion and takes part in whatever festivity we have going on. So, and it's neat to get her perspective. She's a motor pool sergeant, and she loves her job. She loves what being a part of it, and it's neat to see that kind of motivation in a young lady in such a big role.
You'd said when the ceasefire came, you fell asleep, but leading up to it and when it was announced, what emotions went through you and through the other troops in your company?
When they called the ceasefire, it was unbelievable to us at first. We weren't sure that that was 100%. We're like, you know, really this quick? And apart from the much needed rest that I took, everybody was excited, you know, in disbelief, but excited that we did it so quickly, and we were so successful with no casualties.
Your company had no casualties.
Our company had no casualties. And to roll through that and experience what they, you know, the resistance that we did, very fortunate. We felt very fortunate.
You talked about your platoon sergeant and how you felt honored that he had asked you to drive his M2 Bradley. What leadership characteristics or traits did you see in him and gain from him over the course of the battle?
My platoon sergeant actually served a dual role during our combat, where he served as our platoon leader, which is normally a second lieutenant, and platoon sergeant. His confidence and his knowledge of what we were doing and his ability to direct all those vehicles and keep everybody in formation and keep everybody in line is just unbelievably intense, and I think that was part of our confidence, that, you know, when we knew we were going to be okay. I think some of the energy from his leadership was a big part of that. We knew he knew what he was doing, and we would do whatever he asked us to do, and we were going to be all right.
And you were.
And we were. And, you know, that man's spirit still carries with me to this day.
How do, I guess in the broader sense as well, your military experience as a whole and going through this crucible of fire, how did it change you, for better or for worse?
Going through that experience made me more understanding, a better human being, I think. Once the reality of when I went to Kuwait City and seen the aftermath, the cars on the highway burn out all the way, you know, on people that were on the day of the invasion heading to their normal work day, not knowing what was happening. You know, they were dying and then being blown up. The airport, the concrete riddled with bullet holes. It's just unbelievable to think what were these people, you know, experiencing and what was going through their mind. And to be a part of the military that removed these people from this country and you know, gave the country its freedom back. Yeah, it's just incredible feeling. I mean, because it helped structure me where I am today. You know, a family man, and a part of the organizations continuing to support. All that stems from that instance of pride and being a part of something so great. All the training, you know, the way I was taught that, you know, no matter what they put in front of me, I can handle that task. I can get through this. And you just carry that the rest of your life. You know there's nothing you can't do.
So, positive impact in your life that you have also spread to other veterans in your community and your community as well. And now you're a father, and your daughter, if she would say, I want to go into the Army, what would your reaction be?
I would support that. I support the idea of anybody going, you know, whether it's career-oriented from the get-go to just for experience. You grow so much when you leave home at 19, like I did. You know, my mom wanted me to go to the Air Force, and my dad was like, I'm making a mistake. My stepdad and I, you know, always didn't see eye to eye. But when I came home after basic training, he understood that I had grown and I had become a man because of the military. And you know, you're yanked out of home. You can't go home. You're there, and you're not leaving until you're done. You know, an incredible group of people. The company that I was in when I was in Germany, we still stay in contact thanks to Facebook. We have our own group page, and we're talking about a 25-year reunion in 2016. And, you know, it's exciting.
Yeah. So you formed this brotherhood, this bond with your fellow soldiers in the company. And do you see that carrying on for the rest of your life?
I see my Army friends, friendship is absolutely for life. There's today's communications and the ways to stay in touch with each other, either, you know, through the organizations can help you find those people, or, you know, an internet search sometimes, and that's how I blindly got reconnected with my my Army buddies. Was so yeah, life as a brother, definitely not, that will never change.
That's good. Let me check my notes. I don't want to necessarily go back over things.
That's fine.
We went through all this. Those outside the Brotherhood, let's say civilians like myself who've never served in the military, but yet we know veterans, or we know especially veterans who may have PTSD. What positive steps can we do as individuals or as a society to help these veterans?
Helping the veterans coming home that are suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder, loss of limbs, head injuries. Even if you're not in the military, if it's a friend or a family member, don't be blind. Don't turn your head away. That's the best way to help them. Because it's, you know, a majority of the veterans in Washington, D.C. are homeless. And you know, we've all experienced a veteran on the corner, you know, no job, mental instabilities. Families you've heard stories of families turning away from their own family that come home that need their support. We have to support them. We have to do our best to not turn away and care for these people, because they're in a place that even I, as a veteran, can't understand, because I didn't experience the same experiences or breakdowns or injuries that they did. It's too easy to turn your head and say, oh, that guy's messed up, or she's got a problem. What's wrong with her, you know? Reach out that hand. Say, can I help you? Get a hold of one of the organizations, the VFW or a Legion member if you know one, and say, hey, I know this veteran that's struggling, and then they can help them get to a VA hospital, or you know, a support group or anything to help them. Because if we don't help them, nobody will, and they'll be forgotten. And shame on all of us if that happens.
Yeah, I think as a society, if we send our men and women off to war, then we have to do everything in our power to welcome them home and care for them.
Correct.
What would you like future generations, maybe 40, 50 years from now, as they look back on you and your Army and your service in Gulf War I, what would you like them to know that you feel might be left out of the history books?
The future generations from now to know about us and what we did in our part in history would be to know, they need to know that we can come together through any adversity. We can stand side by side and support one another and get through anything together. Our particular conflict was the biggest gem of all to prove that, to show that not only to us but to the world, that we as Americans can come together in any tragedy, any conflict, any war, and we will win. We will overcome it. We will stand together.
Is there anything that I've left out, I haven't asked you, that you would like to say now?
I think, I could talk for hours on, things as they come back, that I think of, but no, I think I'm pretty proud of what we did here.
Well, I know what Richard's going to say. He's going to talk in Jessica's ear. So what I need you to do is state your name, your final rank, and any awards or honors you received as a result of your service.
Okay. My name is Christopher Matthew Gonzalez. I was, when I left the service, an E4 specialist. I received the service medal, the Iraqi campaign medal, 2 commendation medals, 2 achievement medals, good conduct service medal, and an honorable discharge.
And now I'm going to wait and see if Richard has anything. Richard, is there anything else that I've missed?
I don't have anything.
They don't have anything.
Is that good?
Yeah, usually I've got an earful. So, well, Chris, on behalf of WIPB TV and Ball State University, thank you for coming here today. Thank you for your service to our country.
Thank you for
I
having me.
appreciate you participating.
It's an honor to be here and be a part of this. I was elated when you called and asked. It was great to be a part of this.
Yeah.